Why this song is unique.
Hi, I'm Lance.
And I'm Ben.
And we are
Klickfoot. Welcome to episode number 6 of Why This Song is Unique. Today, we are going to talk about the 1990 self-titled album from Toy Matinee.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a special guest with us today, ladies and gentlemen. He is Gary Putman, one of the original founding members of the Dread Zeppelin
Drink them
band.
if you got them.
Yeah, he's been with us for about, 20 years now. Done studio work with him. He comes in, plays bass on everything, plays fantastic 8-string guitar. Anyway, so he's our expert on Toy Matinee today for one reason. He loves the album, just like the three of us do. But he was friends with Kevin Gilbert. So we have a firsthand experience here in the studio with us today. So Toy Matinee fans, you're going to hear firsthand information, which I will guarantee you've never heard because he's the only guy that did it. So we'll continue on. So, Ben, why don't you just set up, did you have any other thing to say about setting up the record?
Well, I was going to say how I even came to know this album. It was
Yeah,
played,
we can do that, right.
It was played heavily here in Los Angeles area on KLOS 95.5.
Marc and Brian. Right.
Marc and Brian radio show, morning show they had. I think maybe it was the Ballad of Jenny Ledge, which got the majority of
Or
the
Last
airplay.
Plane Out, I don't remember.
Yeah, it could have been Last Plane Out. But anyway, it was a fantastic album. It hooked me from the start. I went out and bought it right as it was, and it's just, I love this album.
And my connection on the album was, at the time, I was producing songs and writing songs for an artist by the name of Jennifer Love Hewitt. And the artists I would choose to bring in the studio were Madonna's live band. Those were the people I brought in to do vocals, because she was like 11, so I had to get all the vocals cut out so that she could hear it the way I wanted it to be sung. And because of them, and Bill Bottrell, who produced Toy Matinee, girls from Madonna would be telling me about this band in LA that it's really worth checking out. You got to check out. So that's how my introduction to Toy Matinee was, through Madonna's singers. And then Gary, tell your story on how you got introduced to Toy Matinee and Kevin Gilbert.
When I met him, he had a recording studio on Walnut in Pasadena called the Lawnmower Shop. And he also had, his best friends lived next door to me. So that's how I met him. There was people that lived next door to me that were also musicians. And then all of a sudden, I just became intertwined with.
How far in advance was this before Toy Matinee album was made?
This was after Toy Matinee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and maybe sometime after this. My relationship with Kevin was short, probably a little, I don't know, a year from like 95 to 96.
Yeah.
In 1995 and 96.
Wow.
But what I did get all the stuff you're talking about, unique and stuff, was we would talk about influences and stuff that we liked.
Sure.
And as I think about this, when you guys said that you were going to do this, I was thinking like the holy grail for him was Peter Gabriel, but the uniqueness comes from this sort of like, I don't want to say slick, but this really polished, but in a good way.
Yes.
You know, LA kind of a with the production. Yeah. And obviously the guitar players, you know, we
Tim
still
Pierce,
see those guys on YouTube today with Peter Thorne and all those guys. Yeah. So it's interesting and unique to me in that way. But you can hear the inspiration, but it's not a copy. It's
very unique.
It's unique,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody would ever accuse him of that. But you can they loved that. They wanted the pure progressiveness of Peter Gabriel in that world, rather than something more bombastic. There was an intelligence to that kind of stuff.
There was.
Yeah.
And even when you hear Bill talking about producing the record with Tim, there's an interview online worth checking out on that. They were trying to steer it away from prog rock. They were going like, well, we've done it, and what can we do? Because that exists and exists in its own form. And yes, we could easily push it that direction, but they kept kind of going, well, what do we do to make this thing have its own thing? Which is why Tim can go off on, I approach it this way, I approach it that way. And it kept it so unique to all of us that play music for a living that as soon as we all heard the record, that's the first thing we thought was, well, I've never heard anything like this. This is so different.
And it was pop. I mean,
It
poppy
was
in a
very
good way.
pop.
In other words, that's what's cool about it. It's not just full-on prog rock, even though you can tell it has that sensibility, that sophistication.
Yeah, which you hear in songs like Turn It On Salvador or Last Plane Out or Ballad of Jenny Ledge. Tell a story how, what's her name, became she was the actress.
Rosanna Arquette. Well, at the time that I knew him, was his girlfriend. And she would come over. You're
talking about Kevin Gilbert.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, Kevin Gilbert's girlfriend. And like I say, I met him next door in Pasadena just off Colorado Boulevard. And these were his best friends, these two people that lived there, a guy and a girl that were also musicians. And that's how I met him. And I saw her maybe a couple of times, just like, leaving or coming. I don't think Rosanna Arquette came to this house too much, but she came a few times. Yeah. So that's how, I don't know.
Did you ever get to play with him at all?
Acoustically at that house there was acoustic guitar.
What was it? I'm just curious because my level of fascination on Toy Matinee is like off the charts. This is to me like Sgt. Pepper's or something. It's such a unique
for a lot of
record.
people. It's a really cool thing.
And maybe only an LA thing. It's like what we listen to out here, and it got the zeitgeist and was hot because of Marc and Brian radio. But what was Kevin like? What was just your fond memories of knowing Kevin?
I'm not like him. To me he was a calm intellectual, but calm and sweet and just all the cliches you'd think that you'd think about him, but also very intense and very at that time when I knew him in the middle '90s, it was just like he had not too long before been with Eddie Money as a keyboard player, and you can tell that he really wanted to get his he wanted to get his thing out there in the same way, and this is a huge part of my whole relationship with him was the Tuesday Night Music Club. Sheryl Crow,
of course,
where he was also, they were a boyfriend and girlfriend for a while, but so that was that whole thing, and there's a whole really dynamic, intense story behind that.
Sure.
And the production of, and who wrote the songs and who
Tuesday
wrote
Night,
Leaving
the whole
Las
thing.
Vegas,
Absolutely.
and then what happened to the original guy, and then that guy committed suicide, and I heard all this stuff from him. Just this, so he was calm and and looked like a movie star type
he
guy,
did.
and
Rock
but yeah,
handsome.
he was so, when I would
I
talk,
will say this though, Gary at the same age, I've seen photos. Yeah, it looked like it could have been on Vogue, man.
So, and then I was always ultimately I'm kind of like almost into a metal. I'm kind of a metal guy.
Yeah.
So it was fun to sort of juxtapose that kind of thing. We would joke about it a lot about this sort of almost teenage kind of quality of metal as opposed to his sophisticated prog approach to things, which was inspired by all the great prog stuff.
Right.
I have a question.
Stuff.
Right. Toy Matinee only made just this one album.
Yeah.
That's it.
And Kevin Gilbert is no longer with us.
Yeah, and that was out a while before I met him. He was doing Caviar. Kevin Gilbert did the Prog Fest at the Downtown Variety Arts Center, where every year he would perform The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway note for note with Nick DiVirgilio, who was Genesis's drummer when Phil Collins. It's that whole world, and Kevin took me to see Julian Lennon at Luna Park,
Who
and it was
also sang background on this record.
So,
right?
which is just. It's just all these weird connections, but it's like you said, a lot of times it's sort of a musician thing, where like it might be sort of an LA thing rather than it wasn't
Studio Rats.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's a regional thing, but
it is.
still, it's an international thing because so many people talk about it, about the guitars that came in the live band.
Right.
Marc Bonilla and Toss Panos on drums.
Toss
Who's this guy
Panos,
that
that's
played
right.
with, still probably plays today at the Baked Potato with all these progressive monster type players, Steve Lukather type guys.
Yeah.
Well, what makes this? I mean, normally we do what makes this song unique.
we had to do an album.
or why this song is unique. Why is this album unique?
Yeah, what do you feel when you listen to it? What in the zeitgeist sound of LA 92, 3, 4, 5, were you hearing going on the first time you were checking it out?
When I heard this,
Yeah.
when I think of the music, I think of him wanting to be accessible. That sounds cliche, but it's accessible to people, but with a sort of an unusual sophistication. The prog element is still in the compositions.
It is.
They're not 3-chord songs
they're not.
like Blue Cheer. You know what I mean? But they're not overly prog either. But I think that's a neat thing, though.
Yeah.
I think that's because no matter what, we all know that we like songs too, and we're like, oh fucking.
We like pop.
excuse me,
Yeah,
I mean,
we do like pop. Yeah.
Yeah, but the pop element is, even if it's heavy music, it's like, for me, it's like that's a cool thing. So that the way that melded pop and prog without being, it's a cliche but not pretentious
Too
and everything.
pretentious, right.
Is I mean, if you're a musician, which we all aspire to be, it's the kind of record you listen to like, oh God. There's no way I could ever.
That's exactly
and that's just being honest. It's
Yeah.
just like and we do, and what we do is different anyway.
Right.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
And you're just like you're in awe of that just on that level. I think
That was my attitude about the first time I heard
Yeah.
it. Which was this. Nothing sounds like this.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
sounds like. And I love Peter Gabriel, but Peter Gabriel does not sound like
No,
that.
no,
That's
no.
just
No.
different.
and I bet you Peter Gabriel too in a way. That's an inspiration too. Is come up with your own sound, but do make it accessible, which of course Peter Gabriel did. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in your own unique way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I point out, if you can find it, it's on the internet. Kevin Gilbert's version of Kashmir. Now,
Yeah.
Gary, who plays in a band that was noted by Led Zeppelin, one of the few acts that actually gives tribute to Dread Zeppelin. If you've never heard Dread Zeppelin, check out Heartbreaker Hotel. Their first videos that got on MTV.
Unleaded.
Yeah.
Unleaded.
Yeah, that was the first one.
The genius crossover of ideas, which is their approach was so unique that even Led Zeppelin had to go, well, nobody's done that to our music. Nobody has taken that turn and actually revamped our music into something completely new and interesting. And I get the same thing out of this that I would have heard in prog rock, but then when I heard this, I would go, well, yeah, there's prog rock, but then there's Toy Matinee.
And his version of Kashmir is
Just
you,
whack.
we were talking.
Just
He
nuts.
did a version of that, and that's the time that I knew him when that was out, and that's maybe it was like that was sort of a.
Do you think he did it in that studio?
No, I
On Walnut?
don't know. I do. It was called the Lawnmower Shop. It's the last I heard. Now that the heavy metal band Avenged Sevenfold.
yeah.
That's like a studio for them. That's their studio.
Oh, that's their- oh,
that's
really?
what I was told. But every few months I'll drive by thinking if I see Sinister Gates, the lead guitar player, like on my metal fix. But
I'm curious.
But
This
Kevin
is just for
Kevin
record.
Gilbert is so. Kevin Gilbert produced Marc Bonilla, who's like an Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai type player, a record called Double E Ticket, and produced it and recorded that at the Lawnmower Shop. And the band that's Steel Panther today. Russ Parrish, the lead guitarist, who was also in Atomic Punk, the original, but he was in Halford, Judas Priest. He was Kevin's guitar player, and I would go in there when they were rehearsing, and it was, and I go, Russ Parrish is in Metal Shop, Atomic Punk, Steel Panther now, and his lead guitar player was Russ Parrish, who's like beyond Steve Vai and Eddie Van Halen. They would have told you that. Unbelievable metal style, but also obviously could play the kind of stuff that Kevin wanted, which had more sophistication to it. So that's an interesting thing about that, about the kind of people that Kevin brought in. Like he's a metal guitar player.
You're getting a real insider's view of studio rat world in LA when you talk about this. This is a very insular world that's 2 a.m. more than 8 o'clock in the morning going to work. This is just a cadre of humans that we love this stuff. It's why we get so excited talking about it.
And talking about it, it's so all this shit. Excuse me, all this stuff comes out.
Yeah, I just can't see that you're very passionate.
No, but it's fun.
I would be doing this to Gary all the time. I would find out a new tidbit on Toy Matinee at 11 at night or 12. I'd be texting him going, did you know? And did you know? And then he would always go, oh, yeah, well, because, and then he would tell me something. I would go, how do you know that?
I had a short span where I knew him. And also, I've told you this before. Then he lived, I don't know exactly where, somewhere around LA at the time. And that's how, I think he was living with my next door neighbors for a while. That's why I saw him. And then, not long before he passed away, me and these friends moved him into his home in Eagle Rock, which is the home that he passed away in. Moved him into that thing. And then I was out on tour when he passed away. And
I'm
so
just,
I lost track of him after
He was
that.
young when he passed.
Yeah, I think so.
29, I think.
I don't. Yeah.
And am I correct? Didn't you lose a small box head?
Oh my God.
Marshall 68.
Yeah.
A Marshall
I
head.
sold him it was a 50
Small
watt.
one, yeah.
Well, no, but I cut it.
Oh,
down.
it was a large box.
Oh, it was a real 50. I cut it.
Oh.
And I used to have the cabinets. They were.
cut it.
I cut the two. Yeah, I
Took
cut
all
it.
the value
And then
just
I
to-
nailed the sides back on.
Oh, my God.
So I sold that to him for $100. For $100, I sold a Plexi Super Lead for like $100. And he had all this stuff, but I don't care now.
Point your request for musical equipment to Gary Putman.
You don't have to pay much.
All right, well, that'll probably do it today. What do you guys think? Is there anything else?
I also want to say that he was also a great guitar player.
Yes, he was.
He had, in my mind, the ones that are floating to the top, obviously Tim Pierce and a guy named Peter Thorne that everybody knows, but he also Marc Bonilla, who's just a total monster. And,
you see him on the live videos.
And Russ Parrish, but he was a great guitar player too. That's why he had all this. He had a real Mellotron in the Lawnmower Shop. And you can understand why, right?
Yeah,
the whole Mellotron.
Yes.
But he was a great guitar player, and I didn't know him as well as some people, but what I knew about him was honestly a truly kind of calm, but a intense, intellectual, and wanting to achieve things and everything. But he was calm and studied about when you talk to him about it. He wasn't like I am right now, like crazy. he was calm.
That happens when you talk about
And he was
something you love.
and he was always complimentary to me.
Yeah.
Like really, and he was always real nice about that and everything. So there was that was just like, and when he took me to see Julian Leonard and like, oh hi, and it just like he stopped his show, at the Luna Park. Oh, it's right, there's Kevin.
Wait, now you're saying that Kevin Gilbert took you to see?
That's how I met Julian Lennon, at the Luna Park, because he was doing a downstairs acoustic thing, not just the band. Kevin goes, let's go see him. So that was my little adventures with him. Little burst for about a year. My next door neighbors were his great friends. They're still
Right.
I don't see them anymore. They moved away a long time ago. But so that's how I met Kelvin Gilbert, through these next door neighbors who were also great musicians. And in fact, the girl ended up in Jackson Brown's band singing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right after he died, she moved away, and she goes, I moved to Santa Monica, and she's Jackson Brown backup singer.
Wow.
That used to see her on Austin City Limits,
Sure.
back in the middle 90s.
Right.
Yeah, and then the guy I don't know where, but they were all doing it, and they're all intellectuals. I was just like, can't we play some Pantera?
This is not true. This is not true. This guy's unbelievable. And I can tell you this from firsthand experience. Gary will never tell you anything. Never. He'll never tell you anything that he's done, any place he's ever been. But I remember on a Wednesday going, well, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I was in Wisconsin. Well, what are you doing? Well, I was doing a festival for 100,000 people. Like, what? You were in Wisconsin doing a show for 100,000 people? That's Gary. I'm teasing him one time and going like, well, like who have you been around? And, he won't tell you much. And then he'll go, well, yeah, I hung around a few of the Beach Boys. And then I'll go, well, what Beach Boys? And he will pull out pictures and show them with Eddie Van Halen. What's his name?
Here's something I will say that Kevin
Brian Wilson.
Brian Wilson, yeah.
Very
nervous around Gary.
Kevin and I used to go down to the Silver Lake District and have hobos give us a rim chew. Did I say that on? Can I say that?
You can on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What makes
I'm
this
getting
song
off topic here. Cut.
There's no censorship here on our channel.
All right, well, that'll probably cover our Toy Matinee
Yeah.
show. Although I do want to say one last thing since we're here. Gary, top 3 favorite death metal bands.
Meshuggah, Rings of Saturn, Cannibal Corpse.
That's all I ever hear. Those are the 3 bands.
Meshuggah, and Cannibal Corpse. Probably the heaviest of them all, Cannibal Corpse.
So kids, check those out too, along with Toy Matinee.
Yeah.
Worth your time.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
Lance.
And I'm Ben.
And you are.
Gary, I'm
and
Gary.
we are Klickfoot.
Klickfoot,
We're out of
outta
here.
here.
Why this song is unique.